Let's talk about a really frustrating pattern that so many of us fall into without even realizing it. We're calling it the control trap. We're going to dig into why doing everything you're supposed to do can sometimes be the very thing that keeps you from making any real progress.
Does this sound familiar to you? You're doing the work. You're responsible. You check all the right boxes. But when you look back over the last year, or maybe even 5 years, it just feels like you're running in place. You're putting in the effort, for sure. But where are the breakthroughs?
And here's the paradox that nobody really talks about. It's completely counterintuitive, right? How is it possible that the most disciplined, responsible people often find themselves watching others, people who seem way less careful, just zoom right past them?
So you've got these two types of people. On one hand, you have the disciplined plotter. This person budgets, saves, tracks every little thing. Their progress is slow, but it feels very controlled. And then you have the fast mover, who seems a little more chaotic, maybe less careful, but somehow they're the ones experiencing these massive breakthroughs. It's a frustrating thing to watch, but there's a huge insight hiding in there.
So, what in the world is going on here? Well, I can tell you it's not a flaw in your work ethic, it's not that you're lazy. The real answer lies in a subtle, kind of sneaky psychological trap that works against us even when we have the best of intentions.
We're going to call this the cult of control, because that's really what it is. It's this deep-seated belief that feeling in control, a feeling we've all been taught is the same as being responsible, might actually be the very thing that's trapping us.
I mean, just think about it for a second. Almost all the conventional advice we get is built around this idea of control. Control your spending, control your risks, control your habits. And, it makes sense. Control feels good. It quiets our anxiety and makes the world seem stable and predictable.
But here's the catch. This is the exact point where the trap is sprung. Our obsession with feeling in control makes us completely forget one fundamental truth. Not all actions have equal impact. Some things we do have a tiny effect, while others can change absolutely everything. So unconsciously, we're constantly making this trade-off. We are drawn, like a magnet, to the stuff that's low impact but gives us a high feeling of control. Why? Because it feels safe and predictable. And at the same time, we run away from the high-impact actions because they come with uncertainty. They feel risky.
Okay, so let's pull back the curtain. Let's get to the heart of it. What is really going on in our heads that creates this pattern and keeps us feeling so stuck?
I'm going to say this again because it's so important. If you feel stuck, it is not because you aren't trying hard enough. The problem isn't your discipline, it's your focus. It's about where you're aiming all that incredible effort. And if you remember one single thing from this entire explainer, please let it be this. Control is not the same as progress. Our brains love to confuse the two, but they are fundamentally completely different things.
Psychologists actually have a name for this. It's called the illusion of control. And it's basically our brain's built-in tendency to overvalue any action where the outcome feels predictable. Our brains hate uncertainty, so they'll choose a predictable but useless action over an uncertain but powerful one every single time.
And the result of this illusion? You end up spinning your wheels. You pour massive amounts of energy into tasks that feel super productive, but in reality, they don't actually move the needle on what you want in life.
Okay, enough with the theory. Let's make this really concrete. Let's look at how this whole control versus impact dynamic plays out in real, everyday situations.
Let's talk money. Saving money by, say, cutting out lattes, that feels very high control. You can track it, you can see the results immediately, but its impact is limited. Now, trying to increase your income, that feels chaotic, unpredictable, very low control. But the potential impact? It's exponential.
It is the exact same thing with investing. Holding all your money in cash feels like the ultimate form of control. You know exactly how much you have, but the impact is stagnation. Investing, on the other hand, feels very low control. The market is unpredictable, but that's where you find the potential for real high growth.
And of course, this applies to our careers, big time. Staying in that safe, stable job, so much control, right? You know the routine, you know the people, high control, but often very limited impact. Pursuing a new opportunity or starting a new venture, that feels terrifyingly low control, but its potential to change your life is, well, transformative.
Okay, so this all sounds a bit grim, doesn't it? But here is the really good news. Once you can see this trap, you can absolutely get out of it. The whole solution is to consciously shift your focus away from what feels controllable and toward what actually has an impact.
So here's your new mindset, broken down into 5 steps. First, you've got to identify those comfy, low-impact control zones you're stuck in. Second, consciously shift to what we'll call high-leverage actions. Third, and this is huge, you need to redefine what risk actually means. Fourth, you're going to take small, controlled steps into uncertainty. And fifth, you stop tracking your effort and you start tracking your outcomes.
Now that third step, redefining risk, this is a total game changer. We're all taught that risk is the possibility of loss. But what if the real risk, the much bigger risk, is the near certainty of staying exactly the same if you do nothing? Stagnation. That is the biggest risk of all.
All right, let's bring this all home. As we wrap up, I want to distill this all down to one final crucial insight about the path forward from here.
Please remember this. The problem isn't that you're lazy. The problem isn't a lack of effort. The biggest trap you can fall into is simply misplacing all that amazing effort, guided by your brain's primal need for control.
So I will leave you with this final thought. If you're feeling stuck, it might just be time to look at the very things you've been avoiding because they feel so uncertain. Because more often than not, the life you actually want is hiding just on the other side of the decisions that feel the least safe to make.